Alright, what's going on, guys? We're going to review another Berserk chapter. This time, we're going to do Berserk Guardian Angels of Desire. Now, this is the first mini arc of the series. It's still part of the Black Swordsman arc, but it's a lot longer than just like a one-shot issue. You know, in the first episode, we had the battle with the Snake Baron. The second episode, we had the battles with the skeletons. So now this time, it's not just going to end in one chapter. We're going to get a little bit of progression, some character growth, and yeah, with that said, let's get right into it. Now, like I said in the previous chapter, there are some lost colored pages out there, so I'm going to put these in the video so you can look at them for yourself. They are also online, so just know that Dark Horse didn't release these colored pages, but they were colored by Kentaro Miura himself. So, you know, it's a great little addition, a nice little bit of insider knowledge. Now, this chapter starts off with a beheading. We see Dull on top of a scaffolding, and he's saying the Inquisition hereby finds the accused guilty of making a pact with the devil and engaging in heresy most foul. The accused is therefore sentenced to immediate execution. Now, the girl who's about to be executed tries to beg for her life. She's saying that it's a lie, but unfortunately, it just falls on deaf ears and they chop off her head. Now, after the execution is done, Dull looks over to his leader, later known as the Count, and says, you know, the deed is done. And the Count looks very happy with him and even tells him that arrest anyone who looks like a spy or a drifter as a heretic. And he proclaims that he's doing it for the good of his people and he's trying to protect them from all the heretics. Now, the head of the woman ends up falling off of the platform and rolls over to Guts. Guts picks it up and ends up staring at the woman. Now, this is one of the most iconic panels of the manga. I just absolutely love this. I love how detailed Guts looks here. I love that his face is shrouded in shadows. I love how, like, when he actually looks at the girl, he's kind of got this malaise in his face, kind of like he's seen it a million times and it doesn't even affect him at this point. Like, he's holding a severed head in his hand, and yet he's not getting emotionally riled up. He's not getting nervous or anxious. It's just another day in the park for him. Now, the sister of the girl that just got beheaded wants to get involved, but she gets pushed back, unfortunately, by one of the guards. And the guard asks Guts for the head back, but Guts is in no mood to comply with him, so he decides to spin his face. And with one swift motion, Guts takes the head, rears back, and chucks it up to the Count. Now, the Count catches the head, and I want to draw your attention to this interesting, like, little flag in the background here of a dragon. That's pretty cool. Like, you know, throughout Berserk, there's different lands and nations and everything, so I always love seeing, like, these little details in there. I wonder what kingdom he's a part of. I'm not even sure if it's stated in these chapters, but it's just kind of a nice little detail that Miura throws in there. Now, Guts ends up smashing the face of the guard with his mechanical arm, and if you look at the details here, you see two of his teeth falling out, his face is bloodied, his eyes have got like veins in them. It just like, he is down for the Count, people. Now, when the Count inspects the head, he sees something rather interesting. He sees the brand of sacrifice on the girl's forehead. Now, the reason that this happened was because Guts took blood from his own brand and painted it onto the girl, if you will. Now, the Count immediately recognizes what this mark is. I mean, of course he does. We're going to find this out soon enough, but he's fairly intertwined with the brand of sacrifice, if you know what I mean. Now, Guts points over at his brand of sacrifice, and we see that it's bleeding. So, the fact that it's bleeding means that there's an apostle nearby, and the fact that he's taking the blood from his neck from the brand of sacrifice and pointing at the Count, that yes, I know that you're the apostle, Count. You're the reason that I'm here. You're the reason I'm in this town, and I'm gonna end up killing you pretty soon. Now, the Count knows who the Black Swordsman is, and he's actually rather amused. He's like, a declaration of war, perhaps. He proceeds to squish the woman's head and then just starts laughing. And I think it's really interesting here that, like, the way Miura portrayed his head in this one panel, it almost looks like a baylet. He kind of drew it in like an egg-shaped fashion. So I don't know if he did that intentionally to just kind of draw your attention to the fact that he's connected to the baylets in a way. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure that's some foreshadowing on his part. Now we see Guts running throughout the town. Of course, he made a ruckus, so he's got to get out of there before the guards get him. But unfortunately, he gets cornered and the guards beat him to his exit. Now, because he was conspiring with heretics, they're gonna capture him, and if he decides to resist, they'll kill him. Of course, Guts isn't gonna go down easy. He takes out his Dragon Slayer and he slices two men in half with one swing. And what an absolutely gorgeous panel this is, guys. Wow, one of the best from the Black Swordsman arc. And then not too long after that, this one right here where Guts has his sword behind him and, you know, you see his cloak sort of waving as he's turning around. It's just a really nice, badass looking panel here. I just don't know how else to describe it. I mean, just the attention to detail to everything just looks absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, we got the classic quote, "It was much too big to be called a sword. Massive, thick, heavy, and far too rough. Indeed, it was like a heap of raw iron." Now, the remaining soldiers charge, but Guts is just slicing through them like butter. The soldiers think he's inhuman. We see various men on top of the roofs here. They got crossbows, and they're trying to take him down from a distance. But right before they shoot their crossbows, we see this blinding light swirling into action, goes right in front of them, and obscures their vision. And with this, Guts is able to knock down their support system so that they fall down. And, you know, Puck having helped out Guts, he's like, looks like you owe me one now. But right behind Puck, we see this soldier looking to grab onto him, and he clenches onto Puck, and just as he thinks he's got him, his hands get sliced off. Absolutely brutal. And realizing his men have no chance, Captain Zondark steps up to the plate with his giant warhammer and says, "That's quite a sword you've got there, little man." And Zondark looks pretty damn massive here. According to sources online, I think Guts is around 6 feet 8 inches tall, and he is being dwarfed by Zondark here. I don't know if Zondark's height's online, but God, he looks at least like 7'6", 7'7". He's massive, guys. I mean, just look at him. Now, Zondark takes a swing at Guts, but Guts just kind of dodges easily. He doesn't even look fazed by it, to be honest. It doesn't look like he's putting in a lot of effort. It's just kind of like, whatever. I dodged your little swing there, big guy. Nice try. Zondark continues swinging away, even taking out his own men in the process. So you can tell he's just a very brutish man. Not a lot of calculation, not a lot of planning. He's not really strategic with his swings. He's just swinging away and hoping that he hits him at some point. Now again, Zondark misses and his warhammer goes into the wall, and he thinks he's got Guts cornered here, but Guts is just kind of like, what, is this the best he got? Like, this is like dodging a little kid. Like, can't you go faster? Now Zondark makes the mistake of accusing Guts of wielding a weapon that is too big for his size, and as he goes in for the swing, Guts decides to demonstrate the full force of his Dragon Slayer by cutting the warhammer and breaking Zondark's helmet all in one swing. And then totally defeated, Zondark's lying on the ground. Guts puts his foot on his head and just ridicules him to his face. I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic for Zondark. You know, he looked like this big imposing guy, but it turned out his strength didn't really amount to much. Guts gives him a swift kick to the face, and then we see some sort of a interesting shrouded character in like a sewer system looking at Guts. Now, even though Guts is more powerful than all these men, there's an abundance of them, and the sheer numbers alone is going to overwhelm him at some point. He's eventually going to get tired. So he's got to find a way to escape at some point. But luckily for him, someone throws in a smoke bomb that shrouds the entire area. Now, with this distraction, the man in the sewer system tells him to come over. And having no other option, Guts decides to take his advice, and he escapes with him. As it turns out, everyone in this town is afraid of being accused of being a heretic, so everyone is very suspicious of each other, so, no one looks too friendly. Now, the small man takes Guts to this very interesting little lair, if you will. It looks like a medical lab or something. We see a skull on the counter, and it looks like a jar with snakes and like various measuring instruments. We see various bone models in the background. It looks like human skulls and animal bones and just really interesting stuff here. Books on the shelf over there. So I love the detail. It would have been so easy to just kind of make this like a blank room with a few objects, but Mira really took the time to sort of kind of give this man some sort of a presence in the manga already. Even though we don't know much about him, we can kind of glean some information like, he might be a doctor. The fact that he's got all these bones around, maybe he's studying them, maybe he's trying to learn from them. And now what's really interesting too, and I actually forgot about this man, who we later find out to be Vargas, has this jar with an elf inside. inside, and I'm wondering how he was able to catch this elf. I mean, you would think that would be incredibly difficult. The fact that he saw an elf is pretty impressive in its own right, but the fact that he actually caught one, it kind of reminds me of Zelda a little bit. You know how in Zelda you collect various fairies and such, and if you end up dying, they'll save your life? Now, as we suspected, the man did admit to being a physician, and it turns out that the old decrepit man saw that Guts showed up to Count at the execution grounds, and he's very interested in the fact that he might have a grudge against the Count. Now, Guts, not being the most friendly person in the world, doesn't really care much for his talk and decides to kick his cane down, and Vargas just falls flat on his face. Now, Puck doesn't take too kindly to this and kind of, tells Guts off a little bit. Now, because the man fell down, his hooded cloak fell off, and as he stands up, we see how decrepit his face really is. He's missing his nose. We see that his skin has like boils and welts on it. He's got bandages covering various parts of his face. I would imagine they're gouged out or whatnot. He's missing almost all his teeth. I mean, he looks like an absolute demon. And he expresses his wish that Guts will cut up the Count into little pieces for him. And the reason that this man holds such a grudge against the Count is that the Count ended up cutting up many of his body parts and ended up eating them. And even though the story sounds very horrific and kind of fictitious, Guts believes him, and there's reason why he believes him. He's been through something very similar in the past. Now, excited that he found someone that can share a similar interest with him, Vargas decides to get a little happy here, and he wants to show Guts something. So he opens up a secret door and he takes him down a flight of stairs. And at the bottom of the stairs is a small little room with bricks surrounding it, and on a little end table we see a small shaped egg on what looks to be like a little pedestal. And upon looking at this little egg, Guts gets a very shocked look in his face. This is a Baylet.